Now, please welcome Brandon Berger, Chief Business Officer, theSkimm. Alex Morrison, President, Gray West. Jason Newman, Talent Manager, Untitled Entertainment. Sharon Rechter, President, First Media. And please welcome our moderator, David Berkowitz, Head of Marketing at Storyhunter.
Great to see the full house here, and glad so many of you were able to make some really inspiring and enlightening talks. And so we want to continue that, and with a bit of a forward lens in terms of what's really working in content right now and where some of these trends are going. There are a few elephants in the room that we need to tackle. I'm David Berkowitz, Head of Marketing at Storyhunter, video production marketplace with about 20,000 people all around the world creating some of this content. So I have a very vested interest in getting some good answers out of everyone here. And then I'm going to just let everyone introduce themselves and share what they're doing, and then we'll let the heavy-hitting questions begin. Want to kick it off, Sharon?
Sure. Hi, my name is Sharon Rechter. I'm a co-founder of First Media. We started with a cable network. We own Baby First. It's a cable network that's in 60 million homes, watched by 55% of US moms for an average of 110 minutes a day. And I only share those stats because nobody cares. But what we found out when we found out nobody cares is that we have the trust of women and we have the love of mothers. And we started to create content on social media for millennial women. We were 18 months ago with 174,000 Facebook fans. Today we're at 59 million. We generate 2 billion video views a month, all organic. That's us.
Jason Newman, Untitled Entertainment. We started the company back in 1997, representing some of the top actors, writers, and directors in films and series and theater that you've seen. And around 3.5 years ago, I came home and I saw my daughters and my son on their mobile devices on a Friday night, and I couldn't figure out why they were home and not at the movies. And they were on YouTube and Instagram and FaceTiming. And we figured out we got to get in this business now, because if my kids are not out watching the films, I have a problem. And so we went out and we started to meet with the top creators at YouTube at the time, and now we represent about 36 of the top creators, and we amassed an 850 million eyeball reach with our talent.
Alex Morrison, President of Gray here on the West Coast. Gray is one of the largest advertising agencies in the world. We have about 5,000 people in pretty much every country around the globe. But here on the West Coast, we're focused predominantly on tech and entertainment brands. My background is in content marketing, social, much more digital than you might think of Gray, which is a 100-year-old company. And I think that's a testament to the changes that are happening all around us in the marketing and content landscape. So, you know, we work here on the West Coast with brands like Fitbit, Hasbro, Disney, et cetera. And I'm really excited to be a part of a panel where I'm the only advertising, marketing, true person on the panel, I think, unless I'm speaking out of turn. But we're all digital.
We're all pitching it.
Everyone's going to pitch me. That's what this is going to turn into by the end. But no, I'm excited to talk about you know, the changes that are happening with this group.
Well, I'm a former ad guy.
All right, there we go.
So as is David. So you're in good company. It's safe. You're safe here.
Safe place.
I'm Brandon Berger. I'm the Chief Business Officer for theSkimm. theSkimm is a membership company that makes it easier for female millennials to live a smarter life. And we do that very differently than most media companies and most audience companies. We do that by integrating into their routines. So millions of female millennials wake up with us every morning at 6:30. We are their trusted voice for the news. We're the place that they find their content to start their day. And in fact, the Fusion presentation before this was really interesting because he talked about trust. And our business has 93% of our audience trusts us. Because if you can trust a brand and a business to tell you about Kim Jong-il, you could trust them to recommend products and services and how those things fit your life. And so that's really what we do. And then throughout those routines, we engage our audience across all different channels.
Well, it's a great segue. I think it's also the first panel I've been on where there are more former agency people than current, so a fun twist. But you bring up there are two very interesting words I want to play off of here. One is trust and the other is Facebook. Okay? And Sharon,
We love them both.
see, and that's not even supposed to be funny. That's a scary thing. You know? And Sharon, I want to start with you because you also bring up 2 billion views a month.
I know. I have a sweatshirt that says
Okay, I'm trying to keep my numbers straight, but then, and you mentioned organic. Right?
100%. We have never, ever paid for a view in the history of our company.
So how is, because the headlines I open up are all like organic reach is dead, and lots of nasty words about Facebook. You're taking this in a different direction. So what's your, like, is Facebook getting stronger? Are you going to, we're talking about the future of content. Are you going to be investing more in Facebook over time? Is it peaked? Where is it now?
So I think what Facebook is trying to do is keep the content that people are actually really engaged with and have them watch that. And I think that's what we do. Mm-hmm. If I would have to define myself, and me maybe as a mother of 4 and as, well, no longer a millennial woman, if I had to define myself, I would define it with a negative. I am not Martha Stewart, okay? I have 4 kids, I have a job, I want a perfect Thanksgiving table, but I can't spend 10 days on building it. And that's the kind of content that we at First Media deliver to our moms, or to our women, millennial women. What we deliver is ways to make your life easier. And we communicate on a level that people really resonate with. It's about, yes, we all want the best, but we either we want to get it for a better value, or we want to get it, make us look better in front of our friends, or we want to be healthier, or we want to save time, but we still want everything. And if you're able to resonate to your audience in a way that they say, you get me, then there's real trust and there's real communications. And if you look at the amount of comments that we have posts with north of 100,000 comments. That's real engagement. People actually care and they form a discussion. Then I think you're golden, and Facebook is a phenomenal platform.
And what about you, Brandon?
I think here's the thing about Facebook right now is Facebook is prioritizing meaningful social interactions between people, right? So that's the most important barometer that they're thinking about now, and that's a huge priority for them. And that means if I share something and you see it on my feed, you're one of my friends on my network, and you see that I've shared it, and I've said, hey, look, this is important to me, you're going to engage with it. So I think the idea of organic reach, where we were always about kind of scaling our audiences on Facebook, I think that right now is at risk. It is at risk. And I think that if you built a brand and a business on somebody else's platform, I think you inherently have challenges. I mean, I think one of the things that theSkimm has done and that they focus on is every morning, 7 million millennial women wake up to the news. They get an email. We've got engagement there. We have an app of which we have subscribers. So we really focused on diversifying ourselves from platforms because at the end of the day, you're at the whims of somebody else's algorithm. And right now, the algorithm is pushing back on publisher and media. So I think it's concerning.
Well, we felt it first, right? I mean, brands kind of got pushed to the side in terms of organic reach years ago now. And it doesn't mean that brands aren't playing on Facebook, but the nature of that strategy is very different. And it does skew more paid. So I don't know what the full extent of this change is going to be for publishers. And I assume that, the reality is a lot of what brands were doing was not additive to the newsfeed. So they were right for the quality of the experience to start to make some of those changes, but it didn't feel right if you had just spent years building up an organic audience. So it's there's all is fair in love and Facebook, right? So it's kind of we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. I think that even from a brand marketer standpoint, what's interesting is a lot of times the deals that we do would include Facebook as part of the audience that you're trying to reach. So I think we all want this to remain a viable channel for publishers, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing now is, I don't know how many people realize this, but their original programming is really in competition now with the Netflix and Apple. By way of example, we have several offers for startup series that they're doing over there with some of our top talent, and they're asking me, do I take a risk in doing this series being on Facebook? And my answer to that is, A, you can wait and see and miss the boat, or be on the boat, because the bottom line in my business if you make good content, you'll find an audience. It doesn't matter if you're on Facebook, Netflix, what was ABC Family, their new name is Freeform, or anything like that. If you make a good show, it will find an audience. And that's what my clients are being advised to do right now. And they are spending real money at Facebook. So for these actors, writers, and directors that were consistently working in film and they need a place to earn money and earn their job and do their craft, Facebook is now a legit other buyer.
Yeah.
I mean, Facebook has said they are a video platform, right? And they've spent, I mean, we have multiple shows that Facebook has licensed and funded in order for us to produce. And so I completely agree. The Watch channel is a completely different solution than kind of the organic feed. I mean, I think as you publish content to the Watch platform and as you're part of that system of which Facebook prioritizes you, you've got a big opportunity.
But it's all the same. At the end of the day, it's all about really engaging. It's not about putting your brand out there and wanting, it's just a lot more work on us, which is fair play. I mean, if we're gonna give content, we may include our brands, but let's make it really valuable content that meets our audience needs.
And I mean, one of the other areas that makes Facebook so interesting is that they have bets in practically every kind of emerging area of content. Now, I want to ask a little bit more about just the formats too, because you've got Watch, you've got live video and feed. They're very invested in 360-degree video, in VR, in AR. They really are everywhere. So whether for Facebook or even broader beyond that one platform, where are you placing bets? What's interesting to you right now in these emerging modes of storytelling?
I think what Facebook is doing now is what every platform did when it started content. So when Netflix at the beginning was buying everything until they realized what was working for them. Apple was buying everything and Amazon was buying everything until they realized what was working for them, and then they narrowed in. If you can afford it, you should place your bets everywhere because you don't know who's going to win.
And where are you placing your bets?
Everywhere.
I mean, we're placing our bets where our audience is and where they're consuming. So, it's very interesting, and I hate to say this here in LA, but our audience is on Instagram more than they are on Snap, and so we're investing a lot more on Instagram. They're engaging in stories that way. Instagram is an amazing channel for us to deliver content through, and so we're seeing that engagement, and so we're investing more in it. I mean, Facebook as well. I think as for us and for our storytelling, VR right now we aren't prioritizing it because millennial women aren't standing around with their with cardboard or headsets in their homes. If they were, we would be creating content for them. So really for us, it's wherever the audience is, that's what we're prioritizing.
I like your point on Instagram. One of our writers who's been writing on the Sci-Fi Channel for over 20 years came up with a new idea in sci-fi. Was like, well, we don't know, let's see, let's spend some money and develop it. He's like, no, I want to do this. So he went out and he created a micro-series on Instagram, and it's kicking butt right now, called Receiver, and they're like, how'd you do this? So he does 59-second episodes, and they're working, and they're engaging, and his target audience are my son's age, 13, and he thinks it's the coolest thing. So when David Van Eysen, who created the show, came over for dinner, my son's like, oh my God, I want to meet you, and Jake you can't get him off the computer to come down and meet any client, but that moved the needle, and he's watching it on Instagram. And the Wall Street Journal does a magazine once every 2 months, and they do this one page in there where they take a celebrity or a big politician or something and said, oh, what are you doing on your iPhone? And they talk about, I don't know why they don't talk about Samsung, but they specifically talk about iPhone. And every single one on there talks about the first thing they do when they wake up and the last thing they do when they go to bed, and it's Instagram. It's a great platform, it's fun, it's small short form content, which is why Katzenberg launched Wonder Code to be in the short form content business. And you look at some of the new shows on Netflix that are in the traditional half hours are now at 16 to 15 minutes. And I actually thank them for doing that, because you could have extended that story another 6 to 8 minutes of what we're used to, and you don't need to. The story only needed to be that long, and it was as entertaining as if I watched a half hour of something else on NBC or something.
We're also, as Skimm is, we're looking where the audience is now, and then also where we think there could be that kind of scale in the future. So definitely Instagram now is almost the dominant platform in most conversations regarding social, right? Facebook has predominantly become a paid media vehicle. Other platforms are there, but really Instagram is the sort of center of every conversation that happens with regards to social content. I'm personally very interested in AR more so than VR, in large part because a lot of what I think is important for any of our brand clients is how do you deliver value for an audience, right, period, whether that's entertainment value or utility. I think there are very few brands that I can think of where I want to go into an immersive VR experience, absent from some event or other thing that makes it interesting, a content partnership. But AR, on the other hand, I think there are a number of brands in a variety of categories where real-time, information or content layered onto the real-world experience you're in is really powerful. And so even though I don't think we're even close to being there in terms of a today application or scale for it, that's a conversation we're having a lot more right now than VR, where say that was like 2 years ago we were talking about, oh, wouldn't it be great if everyone could just immerse themselves in our toothpaste? It's like, no, that's ridiculous. But now, AR becomes very interesting. It's not maybe, some of our clients are experimenting today, but it becomes very interesting when you look a couple years down the road.
And when you see this experimentation, is it happening more in like in native apps, or are you picking Google, Apple, Facebook, all these big players have some hook into AR?
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you're prioritizing working with for that distribution?
We're kind of spreading it a little bit, but I even, it's not quite AR, but I even think some of the things you can do now with some of the stickers and things in Instagram stories is like an early, testing ground for some of these things. Like I even, when you sort of pin a piece of information in the 360 space and you're shooting in a vertical video format, like that's really cool when you stumble on an extra piece of information that you didn't expect to find around the corner. These kinds of things, I think, start to set the stage for what a true immersive, AR type experience could be. Today, it's sort of lightweight, and the consumption mode isn't, like people aren't expecting that from everyday interactions they have when they hold up their phone and things like that yet, but it'll get there. And I think those kind of apps are paving the way.
And just as we're talking about a time when people lean forward and engage with the marketing and advertising, we're 2 days from the Super Bowl, so advertisers, a biggest day of the year. Was there anything that any of you saw that like outside of the TV spot that impressed you, that stood out, that you thought might be a sign of where things are going? Because you do see some that are trying to experiment with some of these side digital experiences, and was there anything that jumped out at you, or anything that you even engaged with outside of watching the ad?
I mean, when I put my marketer hat on, the thing that jumped out at me wasn't technology. It was the fact that advertising and the content that we were creating, that was being created for ads, was told with voice and with sound. And if any of you were at a Super Bowl party, which I'm sure many of you were, the idea of hearing what the ad said was almost impossible. And maybe I'm getting old or something, but like I felt like, and having spent a long time in advertising, I that's what I care about most, unless the Chicago Bears are playing, which never happens. And so like I noticed that the storytelling wasn't told in a way that thought about truly the medium and the environment. And I think that we're going to see more of that, and we're going to start thinking about kind of that intersection point, because as you think about your storytelling on your mobile device versus your TV versus your out-of-home versus AR versus VR versus whatever, you think about the environment that somebody's consuming it in, and I think we're going to start thinking about that more and more, and you'll see more of that in the Super Bowl next year.
I was watching the human reaction during the Super Bowl at the party I was at, and it was the first time in a long time where you looked around the room and this thing was down. And they weren't doing that. So there was something being broadcast out there that was compelling enough to not multitask, which every one of us is guilty of doing on a regular basis throughout the day. And that part was, to me, the human reaction to the Super Bowl was the most important takeaway there, that you could do something great, and that really opens the door to having a stronger, better message out there, as you were saying, with the visual and the storytelling going on there, that they really could have gotten more creative. And then the conversations about the people who are actually watching the commercials were so engaging, because, oh, I liked it or I didn't like it, and having these debates during or after that commercial aired was interesting.
Yeah, it's also funny because I loved some bits like the Tide ads, but I had a 4-year-old on my lap on her Amazon tablet who was playing these things just so I could kind of keep her entertained while I spent 3-4 hours not paying complete attention to her. And I was like, I missed the first part of every commercial and sometimes the rest of it too. So it's like,
But that's the only time it ever happened to you, right, as a parent?
well, for that long, she can't normally just let me turn away from her that much. Like there's always that center ring going on.
I think you did bring up you did bring up something extremely interesting, and that's that we as content creators have to create content differently for every platform and every media. So, for example, when we look at Facebook, we look at it as the content that people consume when they're bored. Mm-hmm. So you have 5 minutes at the dentist, or you're putting your kid to sleep, or something like that. And that's why a lot of our content is created not to be used with sound. Versus YouTube, we look at the platform that people are actually searching for content. So we would produce content completely differently. And TV, of course, and Instagram, of course. So I think when you create content, if you're trying to get organic views, you should understand the platform and the usage of the platform, and Super Bowl being one of them.
Well, and speaking of the Super Bowl, one thing that did come up quite a bit is you still saw a lot of hashtags. It's still a thing in ads. I'm not hearing anyone bring up Twitter, where the hashtag was born. So is Twitter interesting to you at all? What is it to you?
Well, we still definitely include Twitter in the conversation. It's not off the table at all. I think that it's interesting, right? Because the natural inclination for marketers, I think, is to create rich content. Like you want to create something where you can get your side of the story in somewhat and engage with people in that setting. Twitter becomes uncomfortable for some marketers only because it's like, well, it's just never. It's like this thing that just goes and goes and goes. So I think it's especially how politicized it's become as like there's so many people who think Twitter, Donald Trump. Like that's just, a lot of marketers think like, all right, I don't know, maybe it's not even brand safe anymore. And so I don't think it's off the table at all, but the way we use it for a lot of our brands is purely as like a news platform. So we'll pump out, headlines or relevant content that we think is relevant to our audience, but we don't mind it the same way that we maybe would have before.
I mean, Twitter for our audience is not relevant. I mean, I think we still publish to it, and that's important for us. But Twitter is primarily an older demographic. It's an older, more male, more white demographic that, because of what's happened with politics, it's moved the needle that way. And so I think, for us, we create content across all the channels, so we will publish it, but it's not as much of a priority. And I think more and more brands are aware of kind of the echo chambers that happen in Twitter as well. Yeah.
One of our clients refers to Twitter as QBOE, quick burst of emotion. And what
the president.
Yeah, clearly. One of the other things that we use Twitter for, by way of example, if we have a client on an ABC show or a Netflix show, is they put the link to that show where then they can go find it, watch it, and do it. So we use it as a news and informative stream of content where someone can be like, oh great, I like what that person's saying, hit the blue link and go to it, where I can really sit back and consume it and then sit back and watch what's going on.
I almost don't see a hashtag as a Twitter thing anymore. Because maybe it's because of how much I've been focused on Instagram and other, but I mean, it's very much a discovery mechanism on Instagram as well. So when I see a hashtag at the end of something, if it's not something I can clearly do there, I'm like, I don't even know what to do with that. I'm not going on Twitter anymore for personal use. And many of our clients aren't engaging in a two-way manner there. It's really just, let's just feed the beast. We'll put some Twitter stuff out. But that's generally the last gasp before it goes away, to be honest. It's like when you treat it in that offhand way, it's like, all right, well, we're just doing it to do it. And eventually, it's whenever the next thing comes along, it'll be replaced.
So just as we look at where content's going, it's hard not to talk about the future of content without bringing up that a lot of what we're seeing now is ad-free, or at least not ads in the traditional sense of it. Subscription offerings become just a huge path forward. What does this mean for you, and so how, and is this changing anything for your own strategies?
I think there will always be people who want to pay a little bit more, or maybe there are more of those right now, who want to pay a little bit more to get their content ad-free. And there will be always people who don't want to pay more and will want ads in their content. Again, for us as marketers, the idea of brand integration will always exist. So brands will get involved in content in a way that's engaging. I can give one example, and again, our content is not Netflix content or shows content, but the most successful video, marketing video in 2017 was a video we did for Bed Bath & Beyond for a slow cooker. 67 million views that video got. And it was 7 things you could do with your slow cooker that you didn't know. Did you know you could bake cupcakes in your slow cooker? I didn't know that. So it was a really good video. You could really go, whoa, I can do that. But Bed Bath & Beyond was featured, and there was a slow cooker, and it drove a lot of sales. So that's good integration that doesn't bother the consumer. We don't stop for an ad. But we're there. But I can also say that we're one of the 30 publishers that Facebook has chosen to allow them to do mid-rolls. And I don't see a significant decrease in views. So I don't think people mind them that much.
I have a very specific joy in what's happening right now in the world. From someone who sells content, we are always concerned is there shelf space on NBC? Is there shelf space on HBO or whatnot? And now that we deal with Amazon, Netflix, Hulu's going to start doing movies now, I don't have to worry about that. That's not a conversation anymore. So it comes down to, is the creative good? Do they like the package? We know they have the money. They'll spend it and go do it. Our writers and directors who come up with the ideas of what they want, the stories they want to tell out there, are way more interested in doing it over there as opposed to sitting at NBC or ABC. And I'm not bashing them. It's just the way that system works. You got to wait in development. You could have things for 18, 24 months, and well, we're still working on it. And that's not doing anything. People want the instant gratification of creating something and telling a story. And these new platforms have opened the gates to have that happen anymore. So that world that I've been in for 20 plus years is rapidly changed, and it scares the beheebies out of all those people because they don't know what it's going to go. I was at a conference in Northern California at Google recently, and somebody said, well, one of the executives said, why would I even want to buy NBC? I don't even know what to do with you. and I smiled internally at that. I couldn't do it out loud in front of everyone, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, from an advertiser perspective, right? I'm not concerned about the fact that there are premium options out there. I mean, the way that people consume media in general is always changing. It's changed really rapidly in the last few years. But I come back to the opportunity, which is there are more opportunities now for a brand to directly engage with an audience. And we talked a little bit before about subscription or the concept of membership. When I think about a Fitbit or a Nike or even a Dollar Shave Club, like the fact that you can have a direct relationship and build community around value, not just offers, but great content, interesting experiences, all these kinds of things, is a huge opportunity. So there's that. And then on the flip side, I don't foresee a future where there isn't some scaled way to reach an audience through paid advertising. I don't see that happening. It may look different, and I think the role of creativity is incredibly important in making sure that we think about context and how we tell stories in maybe a shorter format, or it's a longer format and it's brand integration, but making sure the brand point of view is there so it's not just, oh, we slid in brand X and it could have been anyone, That's our role as sort of an agent to a brand, right? So I don't really see it as a threat. What I see it as is constant change. There's opportunity in more direct engagement, and then there's just a new imperative for creativity that's aware of the context it's in.
And the last take, Brandon?
About that real
We've got to wrap things up,
Okay.
so I'll let Brandon get the last words in.
Well, I think that coming from the publisher or the audience side, the relationship with your audience and that intimate relationship is so important. And if you can have that one-to-one relationship through membership, right? When you shift from being a media company to a membership company, which is really what we play, it becomes very powerful. It changes the dynamic of what you can do. It changes the dynamic of how you engage with them. I mean, our business, just to give context, is we have 4 different revenue streams. We have subscription, which is a big part. We have media, which is the advertising stuff. We have a commerce business, and then we have licensing content. So that subscription relationship is really critical because it allows you to kind of grow that dynamic. And I believe fundamentally that the future is going to be a blend of that scaled audience as well as kind of this one-to-one deep, intimate relationship.
Great. Well, on that, we've got to wrap it up, but we'll keep the conversations going after. So thank you all so much. Great.
Thank you to our panelists.